Hello, everyone. It's Shane Conto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to the Development Hell podcast. And it's the movie club back together again, minus Matt. He's probably hanging out in an Applebee's somewhere with all of probably very few of the movie characters we've actually talked about because not a whole lot of them deserve the trip.
That's an elite club.
Yes, it's an elite club. But the movie we're talking about today, she'll definitely make it because we're here to talk about Amelie. So this is from director Jean-Pierre Jeunet, who I know I'm a huge fan of City of Lost Children, and I need to give Delicatessen another watch. But of course, my personal favorite is Alien Resurrection. Said nobody ever. So there you go. Try to go to Hollywood. They give him an Alien movie. Weird experience. And that's saying something because it followed up Alien 3 from David Fincher. So, but obviously we like to start our movie club with getting everybody's thoughts a little bit on the film. So, Vinny, what are your thoughts on Amelie?
You know what? I very much wanted to like it. And there were some things about it I did, but I'll get more into that later. But I just thought it wasn't like it wasn't very focused. There were just too many different things going on, and like I didn't feel like this was as much of Amelie's story as I was anticipating. So in short, I'm kind of like ambivalent on it, but I'll get more into it once we go into our analysis.
I feel like that might be one of the coldest opening thoughts we've had so far on the movie club. That's interesting. How about you, Alex?
Similar. I feel like I know people, and I feel like I've had women in my life who would have adored certain aspects of this movie. But I think even they would have found themselves a little frustrated with, I think, this sort of style of there's all these little things going on with these people and these people and these people and these people. It's a very sweet movie. And that element of it was really done very well. There's something very sweet about it. But I think I'll talk more about how I feel like it I think it's sort of a victim of its own device. All the little things, all the details, all the how she is as an introvert, all those little things are so important to her. And the way she kind of absorbs the world around her. I know people who would really have an appreciation for that, but I ultimately started to get annoyed by it. So I think that it's one of those things, but I have some really good things to say about it too, which I'll mention.
All righty. How about you, Jim?
I'm surprised to hear, Vinny, that you didn't like it, because I think out of the group of us, you've probably seen the most French films. I'm going out on a limb here, but I didn't know how much of the quirkiness of the movie was like unique to the director and how much of it came from French cinema, because both that director and the actress in this movie, for most of their careers, they didn't really want anything to do with Hollywood. This is a very French movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to talk about why maybe this movie was so successful in the US. It's a really popular movie still, right? But my takeaways were that I enjoyed kind of that world because it did seem very sweet. Like Alex said, it was very innocent. Even the characters that are kind of repulsive are not, you don't feel like they're capable of doing horrible things. Even if they're hurting other characters, it's and even in a mean-spirited way, it's not like you are waiting for some horrible tragedy to happen. So I found myself after the movie kind of I imagine how people felt after they watched Avatar or something. Like I was ready to stay in that world a little bit longer, but I'd like to talk about the technique, like the camera angles and the breaking of the fourth wall and the random shots of glasses that like all over the place. I'd like to talk about the characters. Upset Matt's not here because I feel like he's a big character guy. I also want to talk about the theme of like touch, because like there's a lot we could talk about as far as hands go and people that work with their hands, and I don't know. We can get back into that when it comes back around to me, but on the whole, I liked it, and I don't know. I want to dig more into why, what you guys did and didn't like as well. Shane, what about you? What did you think about this movie?
So I like lowercase loved this movie, as in like I love the experience watching it. I didn't love it as like, this isn't going to be a film where like, this is one of my favorite films, or do I think this is an amazing film? But like the experience was so fun and quirky and weird. Like how many rom-coms can you think of that just wander themselves into a sex shop? And you just have like casually.
Well, Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah, but that wasn't a romantic comedy.
No. I know. I was joking.
We could have totally watched that again for the movie club, and then could have had 2 episodes on my channel.
Well, it wasn't a comedy, nor was it very romantic.
No. Can you imagine Amelie by Kubrick?
Oh.
But yeah, so I've seen I've seen at least 3 films by this director, or at least that was co-directed by this director, because he had a directing partner for Delicatessen and City of Lost Children. And this is this is 100% his personality. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like the whole sequence of like when Amelie's like screaming and it's like ear shattering, and like the camera is like coming in from all directions at her like screaming at the top of her lungs as a girl. I'm like, yep, seen sequences just like this in his other films. And it's just like that. The sound, interesting enough, so I did some digging on about the Oscars, because this got 4 or 5 Oscar noms. This was nominated for Best Foreign Language Film. It lost to a film about the Bosnian War. I'm like, one considerably heavier than this one. And this was nominated for sound, which doesn't surprise me because there's some bold, aggressive sound in it. Mm-hmm. It lost to Pearl Harbor. Or no, sorry, lost to Black Hawk Down. Pearl Harbor was also nominated.
Okay.
And which is interesting. And this was nominated for Best Original Screenplay and lost to
Gosford Park, I think.
Gosford Park didn't win. I wished it won. I love Gosford Park. I just rewatched that. But it was so interesting because like this was nominated, and I was looking at the original screenplay nominees, or the adapted ones, and Shrek was nominated. 2001 was a very interesting year. And like Fellowship of the Ring was nominated for this, lost art and I think production design to Moulin Rouge. So like this is a very big, loud kind of film in many different ways, and bold, and this is a unique expression of an artist, like 100%.
Actually, I just want to say for original screenplay, like Gosford Park, it did win, and then Amelie was nominated, and then the Royal Tenenbaums was also nominated. So
yeah.
It's kind of interesting how you have like a movie from like a quirky movie from a French director and a quirky movie from an American director, duking it out in an original screenplay, and
they both lost.
Yep.
So, but I feel like this film is like, I feel like this is the kind of film where it's like people who love rom-coms, and this is like for those weird people out there that are just like, I hate the formulaic cliched thing about rom-coms. What if they were weird? And I feel like that's this movie. And to going back to, I forget if it was Vinnie or Alex mentioned about like, this isn't as focused on Amelie. It feels like it's kind of like, let's take a peek at this very interesting and unique group of people living in Paris. And it's very scattered in terms of bouncing back and forth between all these stories. And it's funny every so often of seeing her like look up at the camera and be like, and just go about her business and stuff like that.
She's kind of creepy, dude. We need to talk about that too. She's kind of creepy.
So it's not as creepy as like Jack Nicholson turning and looking at the camera and smiling in like The Shining creepy, but it's still a little...
in anything, in any movie.
but I mean, there's that scene in the movie where like she pretty much becomes like an agent of chaos when she like breaks into that grocer's apartment and starts like messing with the doorknobs and his toothpaste and all that, and it's
she's kind of a vigilante, isn't she? Like, isn't that kind of how she sees herself? She thinks she's a vigilante and she's gonna like tip the scale here and like fix that.
Yeah, there's also this unsung hero thing that goes on with her, which really, you know what I mean? Like that really stuck out to me, especially before the end of the movie when, you know, she finally gets to requite this, you know, affection with this guy, you know, and the truck goes by and cuts her off and then he's not there anymore. There's you know, she's always doing these good things for people, but she's not getting anything out of it. You know, she's, you know, she's only kind of experiencing it from a distance, you know, so there was this unsung hero thing going on, and that was starting to make her bitter. You know, that's what I took from that, from a character standpoint. But you know, there's definitely kind of a code of like, there's a certain way to treat people, and, you know, and that played into why she did the little things that she did, you know.
I found it, I like the fact that it wasn't that she got found out or caught like breaking into the grocer's apartment that got her into trouble. It was her own actions that got her into trouble. Like her own meddling foiled itself. Like, do you know what I mean? There was no big moment where the police got involved and she wound up in jail sobbing her eyes out. Like that didn't happen.
Right.
Her plans were allowed to come to fruition and they didn't turn out the way she thought they would. You know what I mean? I like that she was kind of her own worst enemy the whole time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's very relatable. Yeah.
But the part where she took like a photo in a Zorro mask, I think, and she wrote a message on the back and then ripped it up and like he had to reconstruct the message. That reminded me of the, you know, I don't know, Batman or
the vigilante. You know,
whomever,
I didn't pick up on that.
Like this cosmic, this cosmic vigilante that was trying to bring justice to people's like a karma vigilante, you know?
Yeah.
Taking the universe into our own hands. Just like, this is going to come back for you, and I'm going to do it. And it's interesting because have any of you ever seen Mary and Max?
No.
It's a stop motion animation film. It's from Australia. Well, it's Australian and American production. It's the kind of thing where it's like sweet on the surface, and then there's just like random morbidness and like very mature things about it, like just awkwardly scattered in, where you're just like, oh, this is so, wait a, what? And it's just like, I felt like that was this kind of movie too. It had a similar tone of like, on the surface, it's very sweet and like this sweet kind of love story. And then you take a step back and think about like, this is kind of kind of darkly funny about some of the stuff that's going on here. And like I appreciated that tone about it, that it wasn't like, because so many rom-coms, especially like American romantic comedies that are just like made on a conveyor belt and like crapped out every year, feel like it's just the same old, like it's either they've known each other their whole lives and they're just realizing now, oh, maybe this is the person for me. Or you have the two people where it's like they hate each other, but then they love each other. And it's just like you get that same just bland, silly, just cliched narrative over and over again. This was like, there's something weird and strange about it that felt fresh and unique, even if it was messy and didn't always come together all the time. And also could be like, don't know if I'm on your side with all of these things that you're doing, and might maybe, which is fine. And I felt like was an interesting thing because it's like, it makes you question your protagonist. It's like not everything they're doing is 100% right. And you as an audience have to sit there and process them like, oh, she's so cute and sweet, but is everything that she's doing on the up and up here? Like, can I support
I think that's a
this?
great question. I feel like I had to reinvent my own sense of ethics because I was waiting for that moment for it to all come back on her, and it never really did. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Like, were all of her actions morally okay? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, let me ask you guys this: would any of you have been surprised had this whole movie been revealed to be a flashback, and she's recalling these events in an asylum?
Is that
would have been
what movie is that? A romantic comedy that you reference?
I like the way you put that is just like, would I be surprised? No, because like that's the thing, because this could very well be just the world, that how she sees the world in this strange and weird and abstract kind of way, and that's how we see it. And you could, a lot of people criticize a lot of narration and exposition in movies. This is one of those weird things where it's just like, we're going to give calm, cool, and collected exposition at the beginning, and it's weird, dark, and morbid. It just like takes these crazy twists, and you're just like, whoa, wait a minute. Wait a second. This person die? And just like these strange and like that quirkiness and just a whole atmosphere about this film that just keeps you on your toes. Maybe a little too much.
What
Maybe
American director does that remind you of?
Are you going to say Tarantino?
No, I'm not going to say Tarantino.
I'm trying to think of somebody who's just
quirky, on your toes, lots of shots.
Wes Anderson?
Wes Anderson. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, yeah, it does have a lot of that sensibility about it. Because, like, come on, like Wes Anderson's from like Texas, right?
Yeah.
Like you would never get. Before I knew that, I would never have guessed that.
No, me neither.
No, and he very much has this European sensibility about a lot of his films, which doesn't surprise me that which my favorite film of his is The Grand Budapest, and that feels very much like a European kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it's balancing these crazy tones, and it gets dark out of nowhere. And just
yeah.
And these, you could be having a conversation with Ray Fiennes in prison, and he'd just be like, you have to do this or you don't want to be anybody's candy ass. And it's just so unexpected.
Wait, does he I haven't seen that movie in a while. Is that a line from that movie?
Yeah.
You need to see that again. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's such strange, unexpected, just you're in expecting the scene to play out this way. And then you just have a throwaway line wait, what? Wait a minute. And it throws you for a loop. And that's an accurate representation of this kind of film. You're just she's looking for this guy and she's going to look around for him. And it's oh, I've seen this before. And then she pops into a sex shop and you're just oh, yeah. I did not expect this. And, you look in the background and there's just a bunch of toys there. And you're just And it's not like The Office where they go to one of those shops and everything's blurred on the wall because, like, you know, it's TV, and like you have Steve Carell just sitting there laughing at it because he's so uncomfortable. Just like, it's so matter of fact.
Well,
Like,
that's the thing. And I mean, it's funny because I dated a girl. Before I dated her, when we were just friends, we went into a sex shop, like in the middle of the desert.
Wait, in the middle of the desert?
In California. Yeah. But it's funny because it was a lot like that. It was just like, now I was like this the whole time, well, for the first 5 minutes, but she was so nonchalant about it. And the workers who were there, you know, all female, they were all like, oh yeah, come right this way, we'll show you what we got over here. It's like, you know, like we were, you know, shopping for, like, let's go to a car dealership or something like that. You know, it was just like,
we give you a ride.
Yeah. Not for me. I'm usually never mind. Anyway, but they were really nonchalant about it.
So what were we talking about again?
I was nonchalant porno shops.
Well, because the thing is, like, the unexpected, like, this whole entire film is based off of the unexpected. And I feel like this is the kind of film that subverts all of your expectations. And whether it's like, and Jim, you brought up an interesting point of like, is this because we're an American audience sitting in this film and just like not really understanding the sensibilities of things, which I think it's interesting. Like, I think a lot of it is specifically this director, but like, it's interesting because like, I'll sit and watch a film and be like, this is 100% a French movie. There's just like certain things that happen in a French movie. Like, I've watched a lot of Agnes Varda over the past year, and she's a very famous French director. And there's one particular film that I watched where it's just like the whole entire movie is like, this guy is in a happy marriage, but then meets this other woman and, you know, like has this relationship with another woman. And he's like, can he have both of them? And like, this, you wouldn't see this in an American film, and you watch this French film, you're just like, and then it ends very morbidly. And you're just like, yep, this is a French movie. And it's that kind of thing where it's just like, it doesn't have any qualms about getting dark and morbid out of nowhere. And then just moving about his business. Like, it isn't that big of a deal. Because like, you see like an American film, something getting dark and morbid, it's like this big melodramatic thing. And because it's a big deal. And here it's just like, no, we're just going to move along. And
I get what you mean. Earlier, I thought you just meant themes of like wanting to be touched by her father, and that kind of resulting in this extreme introversion later in life, and like that creepy scene with the skeleton, whatever. We can get back to that. But I realized you mean those scenes of car crashes and airplane crash, and there were a whole bunch of things like that. I wasn't really sure what was going on there, but you think it was just to throw the audience like kind of off guard?
Because I feel like, I know, because like one of his earlier films, Delicatessen, which came out I think in 1991, it's about like cannibals and a butcher shop, stuff like that, and just like in this dystopian future, and you're just like, strange. And City of Lost Children's about like a mad scientist who can't sleep because he can't have dreams, and he steals dreams from children. So he starts kidnapping children and stuff like that. And it's like,
yeah,
it's out there. There's strange films. And like, I remember watching Amelie for the first time, having heard like, oh, Amelie's a nice rom-com and stuff like that. And then, which surprised the hell out of me that like people who generally like rom-coms would sit and watch this and not get like really thrown off by the fact that this is a weird movie and has a very strange tone and has a very strange and in your face and aggressive approach to filmmaking around it. Because like, I've seen his other films and I'm sitting there like watching this, I'm like, this looks very familiar. And then I looked up the director, I'm like, this makes 100% sense. Because it would be like, you know, True Romance, I know technically wasn't directed by Quentin Tarantino, but it's still a romance, but it's done like Tarantino style. And it's just like, yeah, you can make a romance film, and then, or like an interesting example, Phantom Thread. It's a romance, but definitely Paul Thomas Anderson style.
A very messed up romance.
Yes, but a romance nonetheless. But it's like a dark thing that, like, by the end of the movie, it makes sense inside the film.
Mhm.
But then you're just sitting there as like a real human being thinking of the world we live in and be like, this is effed up.
Well, you guys mentioned Eyes Wide Shut before, and you guys, like, someone said, I thought someone said, well, maybe that's not so romantic. I do think there's something really darkly romantic about Eyes Wide Shut, but it's also twisted, and so it kind of messes with you.
Because what do you expect from a romance film made by Stanley Kubrick?
Yeah, of course, and I don't know. For me, this woman, as yeah, she's very. There's something very giving about her, but she's also very repressed. And so having a romantic movie with a character who's this repressed it's difficult. It's a difficult, and when I say things like, oh, I found things annoying, I almost feel like it was intentional, for me to feel that way. I didn't want to be annoyed. I wanted to be like on that journey with her, but at the same time I was like, oh man, just go get you some already, because she really, like, I was rooting for her. I liked her. She's adorable. But she was so, and what you just mentioned, Jim, about her father not being able to, whoever mentioned that about her, not being able to, have as much affection with her father. Now that makes sense. And the whole skeleton scene, rubbing, that all makes a lot of sense now, because all those sensations are really intense for her, super intense. And I'm sitting there going, why is this such a big deal? I know why. It's intellectually, I know it's a big deal. Emotionally and physically, I don't want it to be a big deal.
It's interesting that you bring up because like, speaking from my own experiences, when I got to college, I probably said like 10 sentences a day before college. And like, I tried really hard to make friends because I really didn't have friends in high school. I kind of just did my business. I went home. I did my homework, did stuff with my family, and I was the quiet kid. So nobody really talked to me anyway. And when I got to college, I tried really hard to get friends. And the first few friends that I had wound up quietly distancing themselves from me because they said that I was too much and I was annoying. And because it's like, I didn't know how to keep a normal level of communication and stuff like that. I'm like, they were my friends. So I'm like, I could tell them anything and interact with them all the time. And this was new and fun for me. Like, I actually had people who wanted to spend time with me outside of my family. And looking back now, I'm like, yeah, I remember I didn't have a relationship until I was a junior in college. And I never tried it before college to actually get a girlfriend. Tried way too hard. Just freshman year and sophomore year of college. I'm like, when you're trying too hard, it's really obvious. Yeah. And then I look back now, I'm like, my God, calm down, man. And it's like that kind of feel of this movie is like, Amelie doesn't know how to do this. So there's a strangeness about how she approaches all these things. And maybe that's why I felt a little bit relatable to it. Because it's like, I get the not really knowing what you're doing kind of thing. And what is the appropriate way to show your feelings towards somebody? Setting up all these strange things for them to make a connection to. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
I never, Alex, I have a question for you. So hold on to that thought. I thought it was interesting that, Shane, you called it a rom-com, because I didn't think of that. I didn't think of the movie being that until today, this session. So I am kind of looking at that in a new light. The way they were cranking up the tension towards the end of the movie, it's like they're gonna meet, they're gonna talk. No, they're not. And it's always Amelie's fault because she bitches out, right? And she won't talk to him. But like I also kind of like her for knowing herself. Like she knows that she's clever enough to set up this whole trail, and she's totally in control, leading him on. He's all on board. It's just when it comes to like making it happen that she can't do it. She's too weak, right? Alex, I wanted to know what, like, was there a moment in the movie that was like your peak of annoyance with the main character?
Okay, arrows on the arrows on the cement, and then, you know, and then when the truck goes by her in the station, and he's at the photo booth, and I knew as soon as that truck goes by, he wasn't going to be there anymore. I was like, come on, man, what are you doing? And you know, and let me say so, because this gets a little bit deep, you know. Like one of the reasons it's annoying to me is because I know how that feels, you know, like maybe we all do, you know, to some extent. Like I know how that feels, and but I wanted to say this and that, but I can't say what I want to say because this and that. And so when movies do that, like I get it and I understand why, and it's really clever. And I mean, look at the time and attention that someone like this puts into all these little things, all these little details that lead up to just being able to say something to somebody. You know, like I get that certain people like that. This is their way of showing like affection, putting their time in, you know, like the love languages, you know, committing your time, you know, and giving something to somebody that no one else had given before. She does that for people, but the fact she can't do it for herself, and then as soon as she wants it, it's like, so I think when the truck goes by and he's not there anymore, man, come on, you know, like you're killing me here. But I like I said, and before you came on, I said two things. I said, one, I wasn't in the right headspace to watch this movie because I was too distracted. And there's a lot of distractions in this movie as it is, you know, there's a lot going on. And two, it's, if you don't enjoy the film, it's a victim of its own device, which is that very device of these little strings along that she's kind of doing to be that, you know, the vigilante, the unsung hero, is that, you know, she's trying to get everybody to benefit from these little things, you know, and she doesn't. So I don't think I was in the right headspace for it. I think I would enjoy this movie on a second viewing in a different kind of headspace.
Maybe on a second date even. Yeah.
There you go. Exactly.
That truck thing is a trope in romantic movies, isn't it? Like, I don't know, something happens and the person disappears and you think they're gone. It's like the train yes. leaves or something, and this person's on the train and you think they're gone, and then they're miraculously right 30 seconds. Yeah, exactly. They're right.
Yeah, that's the cliche. And that was probably one of the only like major cliches that the movie used. You know, it almost felt like the director felt like he earned a cliche after everything else he had done up to that point. So, but I knew, you knew it's like, mother, you're gonna do that, huh? All right. How much time is left in this movie? Damn it.
It's like, this is a good 2 hours and a couple minutes. So like it packs a lot into this movie, because like you have all these other random characters, and like there's one particular actor, waiting for IMDb to load thing. So Dominique Pinon, he is in like all of his films. He was in Delicatessen. He's in City of Lost Children. He was even in Alien Resurrection, which is the only time I've ever heard him actually speak English. He's the guy at like the cafe who kind of has like a smushed down kind of face. Yeah. That guy.
The guy
And
who's like really jealous of his ex-girlfriend and is recording
yep,
perceived slights into his recorder. He's so
Yep.
weird, dude.
just such a weird a collection of characters in this movie. And it's just like, is this what Paris is like?
Yeah, well, I mean, like some of those characters I really didn't even care about. So that's what made the lack of focus like a little more frustrating for me. It's like, like you're following Amelie, and then it switches to like another character, and I'm like, just focus on Amelie for now. Just focus. But
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, if they had like, if they wanted to like focus on like maybe a couple other characters, that's fine. But they had like another dozen people that they were trying to like that they were trying to share screen time with between them and Amelie.
So here's a question: like that guy, what was his name again? The actor who played
Dominique Pinon.
Dominique Pinon
I don't speak French.
was the only thing that connected him to Amelie, as far as a plot goes, say, that she pushed him and the other woman together, like she played matchmaker between them.
Yeah.
Or was there something in their personality that made it appropriate for that character to be in the movie? Because I don't know.
Like I think she maybe wanted to push them together because they both had like their own weird obsession. Like he would always tape record, like he would always take audio notes of things he witnessed in the diner. So like that was his quirk. And then you had like the other waitress who was like her obsessiveness was her being like a hypochondriac and always thinking she had like an ailment that she didn't really have. So I mean, I don't really remember much of what caused Amelie to pair them up, but I mean, I could just say like maybe she just did it because they both had their own had their own obsessions, and they were both I guess you could say they both kind of seemed like outsiders. I don't know if maybe I'm stretching it a bit, but
yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're what some other people would look at them and say that they're losers. I mean, the way they're not incredibly attractive. They don't work incredibly, high level jobs. I don't even know if the guy has a job. He's sitting in a diner all day, talking on his walkie-talkie. He's definitely weird. But I think, if you're looking at it logically, she saw a pipe that was jammed and she unclogged it. I mean, that's basically kind of what she did. And, it wasn't really that sexy, but it was sexy for them.
I think it was sexy for Amelie to get to watch them. In that moment, I was like, she's having more fun than they are. She was so tickled by the fact that they hooked up in the bathroom.
Yeah, they were.
It was like that's what she was trying to do the whole time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because all that noise was happening and like things were shaking and like the noise kept cranking up, and then she just turned to the camera and just smiled at it.
And then she has her little Jurassic Park moment when she looks at the cup of water and it's like and you can like see the ripples.
Yep.
Shane, you got to audition for one of the Rider plays one semester. See what happens. See what happens. Maybe do a Zoom play. You might
Zoom play.
What's that?
One man Zoom play.
One man Zoom play. It's funny though that to cap them off, didn't they? They weren't getting along toward the end of the movie. Did they ever resolve that, or they just started? Okay, yeah.
What I remember towards the end is that he was worse than ever, but he resented them both now, and that she was worse off than before because she was like lovesick and hurt and had her hypochondria like came back in full force. Like everything seemed like it, which again, is kind of a trope in the romantic movie. Like everything goes wrong. Dude is standing in the rain with a bruise on his face with the stereo being like playing some sappy 80s tune. But like I said before, I like that it was her own fault. She was trying to do the right things. She was pushing these buttons, being like, what does this do? And what does this do? And what's going to happen when I do this?
Mhm.
And it all kind of went to shit on her, for lack of a better phrase.
Right. Yeah.
Because she wasn't taking care of herself first and foremost. She had issues that
Right.
needed to be tended to.
And maybe that's one of the lessons too, as someone who can relate to like seeing other things with other people. And sometimes I've had people tell me, Alex, stuff's going to go to shit whether you're involved or not. You can only do so much. I've had people say that to me because I've been a counselor and somewhat of a teacher and in social worker in different elements. Even with what I do now, there's always this kind of like push toward, well, okay, I'm going to be involved in that to fix whatever's wrong. And then, if it doesn't get fixed, it's like, well, you can only do so much, because when you have other people making choices that you're not in control of, you can't martyr yourself in a sense. And in the case of the couple, it's like, at least they got their rocks off. It's their responsibility now to figure out their shit and figure out how to be good lovers, how to keep that going, so
if I can backtrack, that those two were never resolved. However, the grocer, at that point in the movie, it seemed like the grocer was throwing more verbal abuse at his employee with the withered hand. He always had his hand in his pocket. He was real simple and slow, and was really good friends with the painter upstairs. Do you guys know his name? I don't remember his name.
He was always being yelled at.
It's always being yelled at. And at that point in the movie, it seemed like it was really bad. But in the end, the grocer did move away because of Amelie. So I was curious how you guys, maybe we covered this already with Shane's question about like what was good and what was bad and like what's all right. But it was really amusing, all the stuff that she did to like convince him that he was crazy. Okay. But I'm really not okay with it.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up, because it brings up, it's kind of the, I don't know, I look at it like emotional versus the logical, because one of the last shots I saw, he was more in control and he was doing things his way, and he was talking to, I think Shane, I think you'll appreciate this. He was talking to the customers his way, but there was a huge freaking line. And so it was, things were off, things were out of whack, things were off balance, and everyone was friendly and they liked that kid, and how the way he did things. But because he did it his way, it was a huge freaking line. There were like 5, 6, 7 people waiting to get their groceries. So it just, it became like Bizarro World, and so, that's how that got left. That's the last shot I remember of those guys, of the grocers. Once again, things wrong was righted, but now you go, okay, well, maybe we need to go back toward the middle a little bit, so it's that I find that interesting.
Yeah, because it's like this film, I think you could put a lot of thought into exactly what it's trying to say with a lot of these things, where it's like, obviously Amelie's a meddler, and we've seen meddlers a lot in films, the hopeless romantic of like, I really want to get these two together and like try to push them together, and like, oh, and it's a happy ending. This is like, but not every time you try to fix something is something going to be fixed. And or it could get better, or it could just be bad or the same, just in a different way. And, you have all these kinds of things, and this deconstruction of like, we want to love Amelie because in most kinds of films like this, you would love your protagonist and you would support them. But like, I don't think this film, it's like, it's bringing up these things where it's like, did she really do the right thing? Should she have done this?
Yeah.
Is this the right thing to do?
It's not it's not necessarily right or wrong. It's empowering for some of the things she did were like empowering things for the people she was helping, but the way that it affected, the group of people or what happens after that, you don't have any control over. She's certainly trying to empower these individuals, which is admirable. You like that. But I actually, now that I'm talking, I do kind of like, in a way, the way the director kind of leaves those things like, well, okay, cause and effect. This is how it is now. This is what she wanted. She did it. But I do have an appreciation for that looking back on it.
If this is real, could I go back to Vinny's question earlier? Because we had a moment after Pan's Labyrinth where somebody was like, what if none of this is reality, right? This is all fantasy, pure fantasy. And I had a moment in this film that reminded me of Pan's Labyrinth when Sophia, was that her name? Ophelia?
Yeah, Ophelia.
Ophelia picks up a stone eye and she adds it to the statue, and like the fairy comes out and like the magic starts in the film, right? I was reminded of that in this movie when I forget what happens, but like she notices that there's a paving stone that's ajar, and she like pulls it out and finds the box of toys that sends her on this mission.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought of Pan's Labyrinth in that moment. So what if she is in an asylum and all of this was just her interpretation of her world? I don't know, Vinny. I can't just dismiss that without giving it some thought.
But it's just like, it's an interesting thing where it's like you have this hyper realized version of reality, because like this isn't a fantasy film, like this isn't a strange world, like this is Paris, or at least Amelie's Paris, and like how she sees everything. And because like there's an surrealist kind of feel to all of this director's films, and he's dealt with, because like one director where it's like no matter any of his films, you have to question reality in all of them, and like a Terry Gilliam type filmmaker where it's like no matter what film you're watching, you have to question, is this really how everything seems? Because you never know, to be perfectly honest, and he doesn't want you to know. That's the whole part of his creative process, is making you question. And like this is such a strange perspective of life, and it's just like, is this just what Amelie's bringing into the world that she lives in? And like obviously she's trying to do that in like the narrative of like influencing all these people around her. Yeah. And it's interesting because like Alex, you brought up the idea of like with all these things that she's setting up, all these like puzzles and all these different kinds of things, she's in control. This is her world.
Yeah.
And she's doing that same controlling thing with everybody around her, trying to be a part of the action, whether it's trying to bring people together or empower others to action. But it's like everything, she has her fingers in there. And it's very much her world. It's her story. It's her perspective, which is interesting when you do spend a lot of time with not her. You're still seeing everything from her point of view, her perspective, her outlook on this world. And like really how, like I'm trying to think of like examples of like, you know, with like the Wizard of Oz, you watch the Wizard of Oz, you see actual Kansas and all of it's black and white. And then you go to Oz and you see all the same people, just different. Or like, have any of you seen Big Fish?
Yes.
Long time.
Love that movie. Yeah, it's a good one.
What happens? It's like you hear all these stories of all these people. They're all real, but they're not exactly how they seem to be. Like, you know, the one giant guy is just a really tall person. He's not like an actual giant. You have those two twins who aren't like conjoined, they just happen to be identical twins. And like you have this fantastical version of the world. And I feel like so much of it's just like this is the rose tinted glasses that Amelie has looking at the world, and how real everything going on is based off of how she sees it.
Yeah.
So she's not a reliable narrator at all, but that's not the point, right? It's kind of like agreed upon. And her winking at the camera, her smirking at the camera is like just reminding us that this is her story.
Mm-hmm.
And she's telling us this story. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's her scrapbook, you know, and, you know, that was a theme of the movie, you know, with all the cutting of the pictures and putting the pictures back together. It's kind of her world and it's her scrapbook. And I do look at it like it's kind of her version. I think it's all happening. I think it's all there, but, you know, it's obviously from her point of view. You know, I'm glad you brought up the thing behind the tile that she finds with the kid from the 50s with his toys. I was actually kind of hoping we were going to go more in that direction with that character, because I thought that was so sweet. I was like, oh my God, that was like the sweetest thing when she opened up the rusty little box and she saw the toy, the kids' toys. There was something really sweet about that. And I was disappointed that they didn't continue. I thought that was going to be the movie.
That's what I thought.
It was going to be like a small romance. Things were going to get brought down. It was going to be a small romance with her and this guy. She finds, okay, a little bit older, right? Born, you know, earlier, but 15, 20 years older is kind of common, you know, in lots of the world. So I figure, okay, she's probably like late 20s. Maybe he's, you know, mid 50s or something, you know, late 40s, you know, whatever. Or even if it wasn't a romance, something. I thought we were going to get more of that, guys. I really like that angle. And then,
but you know what? Maybe you know what? Like maybe that was maybe that was intentional. Maybe that was one of the director's ways of saying, hey, you know, this is a romantic comedy, but it's not going to go down the path the way that you expect it to.
Certainly. Yeah, no, you're right. And it definitely, as y'all are saying, that felt like the catalyst to
everything else that
everything else.
happens.
Yeah. I had no idea where the movie was going at that point. Like to Vinnie, like he's the director. If the director is making a point as to like, this is not your standard romantic comedy, I had no idea what to, because it took us a while to get to that point where she finds the little box of toys. And then there are a couple red herrings before she actually gives him the box and she won't talk to him. And I'm like, where do we go from? I had no idea where the movie was going to go from there. So props to him for, you know, a successful left turn.
Subverted our expectations.
That's for sure. Yeah.
The tour de force. It subverted our expectations. All the movie review cliches you could throw out there.
The Tour de France, if you will.
Well done.
There you go. But I guess at this point, does anybody else have any thoughts, comments, feelings that they want to share about Amelie?
My big takeaway, I am a little curious as to why Lady Di, or Princess Diana, Lady D as they call her. I wasn't really sure why she was like, she kept coming back and why the grocer kid was so obsessed with her. But like, I would rather talk about how sensual is not the right, maybe sensory is a better word, is a movie this is.
Yes.
It took me a minute to figure out what all the likes and dislikes were in the beginning of the movie, but that's what it was. It was about sensory, like how does it feel when she puts her hand into the grains of the whatever it was, or the sound of this, or the taste of that, or this thing. It was all very like sensory.
They like to clean out their thing, clean it up, and put everything back exactly where it needs to be.
That was very OCD. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that one actually. Cute.
remember the scene, you just reminded me, and I don't know if this was a juxtaposition that was meant, but remember when the kid's the day the kid won all the marbles, and he reaches into the hole full of marbles, and he tries to put them in his pocket, and they all fall out. Once again, like, there's that sensory thing, like you can almost like feel all the marbles in there. I forget what character that was.
I think that was the old man, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
Okay.
He had won all the marbles, but then lost them all immediately afterwards, right? Like he couldn't hold them all in his pockets and in his hands and stuff. So I think there was like one marble left in the box, and it like triggered that memory. But I could be wrong.
Yeah. Was that there were a few old guys. Which old guy was the painter?
I think
Bretodeau.
Isn't it like the one
that was him.
The one who paints, right?
I thought it was the old man that she returns the toys to, and he found the marble in the box, and that was the memory that he thought of. But I could be wrong.
I don't know. Again, like there were so many characters in this. Like I've honestly forgotten who like what some of them did in the movie.
How dare you, Vinny, not know every single name of every single character when we're about to talk about this?
I'll just sign off.
Well, what's funny is, speaking about, like, it's very interesting thinking about the perspective of some of the other films we talked about that were nominated for Best Original Screenplay that year were a lot of ensembles, like this, Royal Tenenbaums,
Gosford Park.
Gosford. You need a chart to keep track of all the people that are in Gosford Park.
I've actually never seen it, but it's on my list.
I just rewatched it like maybe a week or two ago.
It's like a murder mystery, right?
Yes. And it's very British.
Okay.
It's like, this is very French. That's very British. And it's like, has everybody in it. Like, there's so many famous people in it. There's at least 20 actors that I could probably name that are like legitimately known actors that are in it. But there's just so many characters, and it's just like that ensemble and trying to balance everything. It's tough. Like, I felt like the ensemble really works in Gosford Park. The ensemble really works in Royal Tenenbaums. I don't know if it works as well in this movie, kind of thing. And like balancing all the characters. Do we care about all these characters? Do we feel some kind of connection? Because like, I could tell you more about the kid who Bill Murray's doing all those experiments on in Royal Tenenbaums than I can tell you about half the characters in this movie. And he's just some random goofy kid with a baseball cap who can't line up shapes with the proper shapes and stuff like that, and can't like look at something near it and then put it together in blocks. So like, I could tell you more about that character than a lot of the characters in this movie, and he's barely in that movie. But it's interesting. It's like, it's a hard thing to do, to make a film with so much going on and make you feel connected to it and not want to be elsewhere. Because like, I know Vinny, you at least brought up, like, you wanted to be back with Amelie. Why am I spending time with this character? And if you're sitting there watching a film like that, that's a problem. Because if you're going to have all these different characters, all these different stories, these narratives, these subplots, you want them to feel like we care about this as much. And like, I remember when we watched Amores Perros, it's like, did all three of those stories all intrigue us in the same level as each other? Right. And it's a hard thing to accomplish.
Yeah.
So
it's a good point. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's, for me, I was following the characters out of curiosity, I guess, trying to like, I wasn't invested in them. I was only curious about how like cerebrally it was going to fit together. So that, I guess that's a pretty valid criticism.
I do think it's one of those things. I think some people will really enjoy that aspect of it, and I think some people will be frustrated by that aspect of it. And I think some art gets messy, and I think when you're doing art, in a any type of form, it just does feel like the director kind of lets things be a little more messy, in terms of the bigger picture. But there's a lot of detail in there, and there's a lot of little nooks and crannies of things going on. And there's the blind guy that she, does captioning for, or not captioning, but she narrates what's going on the street for him. And then he has like this orgasmic experience on the street. Like there's a whole other thing going on with that freaking guy, So I mean, there's a lot to take in here. And I think for some people that's fun. And I think for some people it's just frustrating. That's all.
This has a 8.3 on IMDb. Like there's a lot of 10 out of 10s popping up on this. And it's so interesting because like I like graphs. I looked at the graph of it, and like from 7 out of 10 on, it's giant bars. And then like 6 and less, they're just like these itty bitty. And like there's a little bump at 1 out of 10. And I clicked on it, and it's just like, I don't get why anybody likes this movie. It's like it's one of those kinds of things, because there's a level of certain films are very idiosyncratic, and like if you aren't on the same wavelength, or at least on a nearby wavelength, and like at least picking up some things, you could just be completely off. I know certain people that hate Wes Anderson because they're just like, what is this? And I'm like, this is my shit that you're talking about here. And it's just like the Coens, my frequency. Wes Anderson, my frequency. Like I get their humor. I feel that feel for it. I just sit in awe and watching like all the symmetrical shots of everything and the color palettes and all kinds of stuff like that. But like some people are just like, what is this? And this is one of those kinds of things. Like this is a potentially alienating artistic vision. And if you're not vibing with it, you'd probably be sitting there like, I think one of the moments that will challenge you is that moment I brought up earlier of the screaming, where like she's still a young girl and she is shrieking, and it's like probably shattering glass all around you. And it's like coming in all these aggressive camera shots, these zoom ins and stuff like that. It's just like, that's how it is. This is a very visceral, bold, engrossing environment. And if you aren't okay with that, or this doesn't click with you, you're going to be like, no, like not my thing. But it is my thing, and I enjoy his films. And he has a new one coming out on Netflix, like Big Bug or something like that. Or
that's when I told you guys about when we first chose Amelie.
Yep. So coming to Netflix sometime, and interested to see 20 years later what he has up his sleeve.
Wow. Holy moly.
Yeah, because it's 20 years old.
Man.
2001. Speaking of ensembles, Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring also came out this year. It's a year of ensembles.
She's still attractive though, Alex. Don't worry.
Oh, good. I'll look it up.
Alex is going to find her number. Just be like,
no, I got I got a date with my walkie-talkie at the diner on Route 9. I'm too busy too busy pining over the hostess. Not really. Exactly.
Oh my God.
Vinnie's just like, we've gone off the rails. But
6:15 on a Tuesday, waitress looked at the guy in red. Click.
But anyway, Does anybody have any other strong feelings that they want to share about Amelie?
I think I said all. I think I said all I had to say.
All righty. Well, you know what? That's another edition of the Movie Club on the Development Hell podcast. Missed Matt. Well, I promise next time when Matt's here, we're going to retroactively ask if we're taking Amelie to Applebee's or not. So, and then we're still figuring out what we're going to watch next time. So no update for all of you, but look out for next month. And we'll have another great film, hopefully, to chat with all of you about and enjoy all 5 of our perspectives, all varied they are. And, you know, I have a fun time with this. And Vinny, Alex, Jim, thank all of you. And thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting the Development Hell podcast.